Welcome to the TMRN Time Monk Radio Network. I'm Gemini, and today is Saturday, December 3rd, 2011. We are looking forward to delving into intuitive ability, tarot reading, and dream interpretation with empath and intuitive Melodi Grundy this evening. Melodi joins us from rural Ireland, where she does personal consultations and readings from her office and by phone. You can learn more about Melodi by visiting her website, www.melodigrundy.wordpress.com. Melodi is also trained and certified by the Fellowship of the Spiral Path out of Berkeley, California, to aid others in seeking out their personal spiritual path by means of card, psychic questions, and guided meditations. Good evening, Melodi. We are looking forward to our show this evening and learning more about your intuitive gifts.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to this.
Thank you. For our listeners, this interview will offer insight into the world of tarot, dream interpretation, and the intuitive abilities that we can all tap into. Melodi has links to her card reading of the day, her reading schedule, and psychic fairs with free information and downloads at melodigrundy.wordpress.com. The WebBot forum administrator and producer of the show is Fox, and he will be doing the recording and technical support of the show. Several members of the forum were kind enough to join us this evening. Please welcome members Easy, Lua, Plane, and Uranus Rising. This interview will be available on YouTube and for free on the WebBot forum channel and at the website webbotforum.com. You may also find links to our interviews at Time Monk Radio Facebook page. We're going to begin this evening with some mini readings by Melodi. Are you ready to get started, Melodi?
Certainly. First, I'd like to say just a little bit about what it is I'm doing. Most of the time, I'm not actually reading classic tarot cards, but I read what are called oracle cards, or in the case of the cards I'll be using this evening, there's a deck called Psy Cards, which you can find out more about online. Just look up psycards.com. They were invented by Jungian psychologists, and the reason I really like them is because they have modern pictures on them. Many of them have similar motifs as the tarot cards, but not all of them. It's a slightly smaller deck, but the thing is they have cards like a card for work that it just seems to be more accessible to modern people. I also use regular decks as well, but tonight mostly we'll be working with oracular decks. And that's what the other thing about the Psy cards is they've been nice enough to put them up online, which makes them very easy for me to show to people because I can link to them without having to take individual photographs of the cards. So that's another reason, a practical reason for using this deck. I was asked before the interview to look at a few things and explain what cards of the day are. Generally what I do, I used to do live readings on a radio show for Planet Star's psychic service, and they no longer have a radio show. But when I was doing this a few years ago, I would do private readings for people. Well, not private, they'd be on the radio. But people would call, and they'd ask about anything, their cat, their boyfriend, whatever. And the same cards would often come up for everybody on the show. Not every single card would be the same, but there would almost always be one card that would show up in almost every reading. And this happened week after week after week, and it tended to change. And I finally realized that what was probably happening is cards in general, or at least the way I read them, tend to be energies rather than sometimes they're facts, but usually a card is more describing the energy around a situation rather than the fact of the situation itself. Now, a good psychic intuitive may be able to figure out a fact from that, but in general, it's simply reading the energies. And I realized that every week things were changing, but they would usually be the same each week. And so there was always like one or two energies that seemed to be influencing everybody at the same time. And this could be a good thing like friendship or the sun, or it could be something like the card of destruction and death or whatever. And sometimes then too, if you looked at the headlines in the mainstream media, you would often see connections between what those energies were. I mean, if times were good and the card for money was coming up and it was booming, that would be in the paper. And if the cards were money and things were bad, that would be in the paper too. It was up to me to figure out how that interacted. But like, for example, about 3 years ago, I started getting lots and lots and lots of cards with economic problems in them. And that actually started to show up before the economic crash happened. And then once it did, I still repeatedly, even with private clients now, get that very often as interference. And we all know that's going on. You don't need a card to tell you that, but it's often reflected in the cards. Anyway, that's the background information. So I started doing something this summer called a card of the day, which is an attempt using 1 to maximum of 3 cards to read the energies on that day that are the most influential on at least the Western world, because I live in Europe and I have connections in North America, but it can be the whole world, but mostly it's the West. And taking off from that, I was asked to look at some issues for the future, which I'm going to put here, and I have linked on my website. You can go it's www.melodipsychicreadings.com, or the address she already gave you, and you can find it there. It's up on the front, and it'll say mini readings for the Time Monk interview up there, and just click on it. You can see these for yourself. But the first one I was asked to look at the energies for the year 2012. And as we all know, 2012 has a lot of stuff around it, especially the whole idea of, is it going to be the end of the world, or what did the Mayans say? My cards won't actually say anything about that exactly, but they may give us a clue to where some of the problems may come from. Now, I just pulled 3 random cards, and it just happens that the 3 we got, the first card is the Prison, which is a prisoner sitting in shackles in a jail. That doesn't sound too good, and it isn't. The second card is the Liar, which is a Joker figure who's dancing around holding a mask, and he's smiling on the mask, but the face behind him is grimacing, and there's a curtain with somebody behind it that he's trying to keep you from seeing. So he's not really a really good card either. He kind of means deception, lying, something is not as it seems. But the final card is really good. The final card is Friendship, which is 3 friends sitting together having a drink. And they're having a really good time in a pub. These cards were made by someone in England, and for readers or listeners in North America, pubs in the UK are not like bars in the States. Pubs in the UK or Ireland are where you go to meet your friends. They're not necessarily where you just go to drink or dance. You could do that too, but they're more like a coffee shop in that sense. So anyway, this is really good. So what I have written is basically the cards for 2012 do not look very good, but they seem to involve entrapment, lies, and deceptions. But the major thing is that the problems in 2012, the good news is they seem to be related to things people do to other people, not to major earth changes or cosmic events that are beyond human control. And the good thing about this is because they are within human control, that means that there might be something possible that could be done about them. It also means that a person who's alert and prepared may be able to sort of deal with them, because people are something, even really mean people are something we sort of understand. The cards don't mean there won't be any natural disasters in 2012. There probably will be, but they don't show up in the cards, at least not at this time, as the major energy that people will be talking about, reading about, and dealing with. But falsehood and entrapment will be. And my reading of this is that friendship will be a very strong way, and one of the major ways that we can cope with this by relying on true friends and systems of community will be the best way to cope with this outward situation. So that's 2012. Now we get to 2013, which now, first off, because the cards read energies, the further away you get in time, the less likely the cards are to be accurate. This is not a get out of jail card free for the psychic. This is simply because I'm reading energies. And just like people could change the outcome in 2012, that doesn't mean they will. But because it's human caused, that's much easier to alter, which could alter some of what happens in 2013. But right now, the most likely future path seen in the cards is that the 3 major themes for 2012 will be the home, really good card in this case, cat on the mat, fire in the fireplace, tea on the table, really think cozy, wonderful cottage, and you've got the home. That's the good card. Unfortunately, the cards that follow it are maybe not so good, and they give us an indication of where the problems may be coming from. The 2 other main themes are the body, which represents the physical world, physical help. It's an illustration like from a 15th century manuscript of a body that's been almost dissected. We often call this the creepy card because it doesn't look really nice, but it's not necessarily a bad card, except that in this case, I think it means the body as human beings and the material world, and that's like right in the middle. And the final card is unfortunately destruction, which this does not mean, and I've got this written down the side, it does not mean, oh my goodness, we're all going to die. But it does suggest that there's going to be a lot of problems in 2013, that some of the major themes will be threats to the home, and the home can be your own home, it can be your nation, it can be the home even as Gaia, the world. And again, I don't think this is going to mean the world is going to be destroyed, but it means that we probably, if things don't change, there is the likelihood of great geological and natural problems such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and other things, possibly even famine. Things, if they're man-made, they're probably things like wars or other things that can cause a lot of destruction to the bodies of people. But again, but that home card, again, may be a clue as to how people can deal with that, because the home then becomes essentially a place of safety, a place of retreat, so that along with friendship and community, you have a direction there, but where you can look for things. So while things do not look so good for 2012, it looks to me like the year to really watch out for is 2013. And that's the first two mini readings that I had. And again, there are only 3 cards. One would have to do like probably 20 cards or more to get a really full reading, but that gives an idea of the 6 things to look for in the next 2 years, and people can go back to the website and refer to it. I'll just leave it up there, and we'll see how accurate the cards turn out to be.
All right, Melody, thank you. And just to follow up on that, how soon would you do a reading relative to 2013 where you feel like it could be more accurate since we're this far away from it?
Generally, now my husband and I also do, he's a rune master, and I'm learning the runes from him. Generally, we do a rune reading around New Year's Eve, or sometimes in November as well, because that's basically some of the traditional Celtic New Year. So around much closer to the date, basically at the start of the year. Like, I feel that my cards are probably much more accurate for 2012, and with 2013, if things continue the way they are, they will be accurate for 2013. But I would really want to look at them again at the end of 2012.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I'd be interested in you sharing with us about your long and interesting history of training and explorations. For example, what traditions or methods you have trained in, including becoming a priestess, and how is it that you became involved with card reading as a means of divination?
Okay, well, very briefly, as a young child, I had a lot of memories of past lives and tended to see rainbows around things. Now, that's an interesting one, because when I was a little tiny child, I saw rainbows around everybody. And my mother, bless her soul, said they weren't there and they went away. So now I feel them, but I don't see them anymore, except sometimes in dreams. Now, she didn't know any better. She didn't see rainbows. This isn't her fault. But I think that's a really good indication of how adults can influence children and how we perceive the world.